I interviewed for that
Really?
and they rejected me first time round. This was like 18 months later. We've reconsidered,
Really?
actually, we'd quite like you to come and do it. Yeah, like if you think about Formula One, every time you get a new car, you don't scrap all of your existing systems just to build a new car and start again from scratch with a different team. Actually, you don't have to know all the answers. There's never a good time to jump.
No time's
Well, there's never a perfect time to jump.
So I know that very well.
Sometimes you just got to jump and figure it out. And it's okay to fail.
That's development.
As long as you learn from that.
Just don't do it twice. Today on the High Performance Leaders podcast, we're joined by someone whose career has taken him from the early stages of working life up to the boardroom. Barry Smith has spent decades building a career in technology leadership, working his way up through senior roles at some of the world's biggest names in construction, built environment and architecture, including WS Atkins, Foster & Partners, and more recently as the Chief Information Officer at Skanska, one of the world's largest construction and development companies. As CIO, Barry has steered the business through some of the highest stakes technology change a company can ever face. It's that full life cycle from starting out to leading change at board level to advising businesses that shapes how Barry sees things today. Because what's interesting about Barry isn't just the technology, it's that he leads with people first. Ask him what his job is actually about and he'll tell you it's about translating what an organization is trying to achieve into something technology can actually deliver in language that lands, not language that loses the room. In this episode, we'll get into that journey, what it really takes to lead change at board level, why some of the biggest technology failures in businesses have nothing to do with the technology itself, and what the job of a CIO actually looks like in the age of AI. Well, Barry, welcome to the High Performance Leaders podcast. It's great to have you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me along.
Thank you very much. So Barry, take us all the way back. How did you become the CIO for Skanska, one of the biggest construction companies in the world?
Yeah, so I guess I started working in IT roles at the back end of the 1990s.
Okay.
And I've kind of worked my way right the way up, really, across a variety of different organisations. When I first got into IT, literally on a help desk, answering the telephone. And
because you started all the way back on the help desk that you had worked all the way through.
That's absolutely right.
Wow.
Yeah. So entry level job, really important. Kind of learning about organisations, learning about how IT worked. Really enjoyed that. And then ended up kind of going through a series of progressions in my career.
Okay. So
help desk through to desktop support. And then, just kind of studying along the way. I hadn't studied IT or technology at college, and I didn't go to university, so that was kind of new to me at that point.
Really? So you had no academic background in technology then?
No.
It's just through the IT help desk support?
Yeah, absolutely. So I left sixth form and I kind of went on and did a few other things. Maybe we can come back to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, ended up working on a help desk, doing desktop support in different organisations. So kind of learning about how different companies work.
Right.
And I think one of the things I learned pretty quickly was that there were always going to be people around me that were much better with technology and much better engineering capability than I had.
Okay.
But one of the things that really stood out and I realised was that actually I was pretty good at dealing with people and good at communicating in plain English and able to motivate the team and kind of organise a team to do stuff. So, and I think that naturally then leads you into going down more of a management route. And I think, being able to talk in plain English has been a massive career asset for me up to this point. So, I'll continue to try and do that. But and then, going through a series of roles, taking on more and kind of broader management responsibility. So I ended up working for a company called WS Atkins, a kind of big multinational engineering firm, working for a brilliant chief information officer there lady called Leslie Hume.
Okay.
It was just a fantastic role model, an amazing CIO, and somebody who really developed other people and was really focused on great engagement between IT and the organisation, but also building really strong teams. So I kind of had the benefit of kind of working under a really good mentor there. And and then I think when I got to that point, I realised that actually I want to be a chief information officer.
So that was the moment for you where you thought, do you know what, this is for me.
I want to do that job.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah. And I would say that was probably about 2003.
And was that because of her?
Yeah, watching Leslie operate and kind of, how she kind of used, her skills in that role was really inspiring for me. And and I think at that point I was like, right, I'd like to kind of move my career in that direction. She, superb role model. And I took a really deliberate action at that point, which was to write down my career path and draw that out to being a chief information officer.
Really?
So I mapped out what I thought I needed to do and the career steps. And I remember literally sitting down with a bit of paper and working it out, and how long I thought I would need to spend in each of those stepping stone roles. And importantly, I think at that point, I didn't really realize what I was doing at that point. And now I reflect on it. Quite a useful exercise, because what I was doing at that point was kind of writing down, right, what roles do I think I need to do? Why? And most importantly, what experience do I need to acquire out of that role? That's going to build me up a set of capabilities to do that chief information officer job.
Roadmap together.
Yeah, exactly that. So and then ultimately kind of ended up kind of going from Atkins to Foster and Partners, really big, fantastic architects practice, kind of world leading architects.
Famous. I mean, Gherkin.
Yeah, Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
Apple's campus in Cupertino. Yeah, amazing. Really great, inspiring organisation to work in.
Absolutely.
Super high demand, but really talented and an ambition to do things well, and that was reflected in how we employed technology there too. And then from there to go into Skanska, so to be Chief Information Officer for Skanska's UK business, and I did that for 7 years. I interviewed for that.
Did you?
And they rejected me first time round.
To begin with, to join Skanska? Really?
So, and they rejected me because I didn't have any ERP experience, so enterprise resource planning programs. So kind of finance, HR, commercial tools. Didn't have any experience in that, or enough in their view at that point.
As luck would have it, how things turned out.
And then after a little while, they came back to me and said, actually, we've reconsidered. This was like 18 months later. We've reconsidered.
Really?
Actually, we'd quite like you to come and do it.
Okay.
And and then the irony of that is I kind of ended up doing 2 massive ERP programs for Skanska and kind of becoming their kind of global go-to person for getting ERP programs over the line.
But to begin with, to start out, you didn't have enough experience to lead it.
Yeah. So, fortunately for me, I had the opportunity to build that experience up on the job there. So, and then, just finished up at Skanska earlier this year, and now I'm just kind of enjoying my time, enjoying the summer doing some freelance advisory work, kind of in a PE-backed space, which is really good fun. Kind of whilst looking around for, what's the next exciting, challenging, fun opportunity to go and get stuck into.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got, such an exceptional track record, particularly in, construction and built environment space, and in that transitional phase right now where, there's so much skills, expertise that, knowledge, particularly around AI, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, that you can help businesses with in this very chaotic time at the moment. But coming back to your earlier career, you've had a big focus in your career within construction built environment.
Yeah.
Was that out of choice? Was there a particular moment, and you mentioned there about Leslie, that was really the pivotal moment for you, realising I want to be a CIO, and then looking at the roadmap of how to get there. But then did you have a moment where you felt like, construction built environment, this is where I want to be? How did that come around?
So I kind of just opportunistically ended up working at WS Atkins because I was working for a consultancy firm and I got sent in there to do an assignment, and Leslie spotted me and started working with me, and she then hired me in.
Okay.
But I felt a really good affinity with engineering at that point and construction. My dad was a builder, a carpenter, and a surveyor later in his career. So I kind of grew up in a house where there was a lot of construction terminology just without really realising it.
So you understand the business, the industry, can relate to it.
Yeah, I think you just kind of, you just by osmosis, you kind of pick up some of that.
Definitely do.
And you build a familiarity with it. So, and, so I think when I landed at WS Atkins, I was, hearing terms that I was familiar with, and I was kind of seeing projects that, maybe I had a bit of an understanding, from a very distant perspective about how those kind of projects might manifest themselves. And then, working at Atkins was really good. Big, multinational, multidisciplinary firm. I was there for 7 years. The last year of that, I ended up going and working in Bangalore in India.
What an experience, eh?
Amazing. Yeah, really good. So setting up a massive kind of global offshore delivery center.
So you went out there to set up that center?
Yeah, so I went out to set up all of the technology for that.
Wow.
And I remember coming home and speaking to my wife, Lucy, and saying, do you want to go to Bangalore? And she said yes. And I said,
so she came with you?
Yeah. Do you want to go and have a look?
Yeah.
And she said, no, that's fine. You go, and if you think it's a good option, then we'll go. And we had Molly at that point, who was 1 when we went to Bangalore. And a week before we went, we found out that Finn was on the way. Oh. So he was actually born in Bangalore. A different experience to what we was expecting, but amazing nonetheless. We actually got the technology up and running for the Global Design Centre. I was due to be there for 12 months. We got the technology up and running for the Global Design Centre in 3 months, because things, certainly on the technology front, happen a lot quicker in India than they do over here.
Is that through less red tape or just people get it done quickly?
People get stuff done quickly. Yeah. There's money on the table. There's an opportunity to win and deliver the business. And there's a lot of capable resource there to get the job done well.
I guess they just work around the clock to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just kind of, they want to please clients and they want to deliver successfully, and, hopefully that may lead on to other things. And so we got that up and running. Yeah. And, my job then was to set up the kind of longer term infrastructure, to build the team there, to recruit the IT team, to get the management team in place to kind of run it, when ultimately we left, because you don't want expats running an environment like that forever. It's expensive and kind of, not a great cultural fit, really.
Absolutely.
So
it's difficult to get people to stay there for long term as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a project.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's really good fun. And then, from there to Foster and Partners. So somebody I'd worked with at Atkins had moved over to Foster and Partners.
Okay.
And
so recommendation, and then
he hired me in to go and work at Foster and Partners. Brilliant. Which was a great opportunity. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
How does the environment of someone like a Foster's and Partners vary from Atkins and then also Skanska? Because obviously they're different companies in the built environment sector, aren't they?
Yes. So very different. Yeah.
Just in the way in which they do things, or
so Foster and Partners, high creativity,
right? Because architects and
so very creative people, highly ambitious, want to get stuff done, want to deliver it to an incredibly high standard very quickly, lots of deadlines, very limited opportunity for things to fail. So IT just needs to work really well all the time. Whether it's a laptop for a client presentation or kind of high-end rendering systems that you're getting visualizations out of, overnight. And Foster's was private equity backed at that point, and still kind of majority shareholder in Norman. But so very different in terms of working for an organisation that's got a kind of private equity backed mindset, compared to a listed company like Atkins or like Skanska, where there's a requirement to report in a different way, a lot of transparency to shareholders, accountability of a chief exec and an executive team to shareholders and a board. Things get done a lot quicker at companies like Foster and Partners.
Really?
Yeah, because if you make a good business case and people can see the value in it, the money comes on the table quickly to get that done.
Okay.
And there's an ambition to be the best in the market. I mean, you've worked in Formula One and in motor racing, and I think it's very similar. It's that, how can we make the car go faster? How can we deliver projects better? How can we beat the competition? How can we smash it?
Absolutely.
And I think that passion and that ambition really comes through. So, lots of focus on that kind of fast, high-paced delivery, high quality, high creativity. Whereas when you go to somebody, so maybe a more corporate kind of shareholder owned, things can be slower paced because there's more governance, there's more risk management that needs to be done. There's more
people in the room.
There's more people in the room, and you've got different processes that you need to work through. And I've really enjoyed working in both environments because they're so different.
Absolutely,
and you learn different skills and have to work in different ways to get stuff done successfully in both of those organisations.
With that adaptability, which you get through experience in different companies, of course, and different sectors. Have you taken bits from your Atkins experience, bits from Foster and Partners, and that's changed how you maybe are as a leader, inside someone like Skanska now? Or was?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I think there's a real benefit in working in multiple different organisations and sectors and different environments. And I think that's a real career asset to be able to do that. If you work in the same firm forever, no different.
And that's very true.
I'm not knocking anyone who does that because, I meet lots of people who kind of join a firm straight out of college, school, university, and they maybe come in on a graduate scheme. And I've met lots of people who've kind of run that career path and, they retire out of that company or they make it all the way up to being on the executive team and, fair play to them. But certainly for me, I found it really beneficial in being able to build up those different experiences. And, guess what? A lot of organisations suffer from the same problems and they suffer from the same, or they not suffer from, they have the opportunity to exploit the same opportunities, but they arrive at different times. Yeah. And I think if you've seen it and you've learned it in one place and you've kind of got that muscle memory, then you can apply it in the next. And even like Foster and Partners, really high focus on R&D, lots of focus on research and development. I had the real privilege there of working and with a team called the Applied Research and Development team, super talented people, the absolute best in their field. And you can learn from that approach to R&D and then take that and apply it in a, perhaps a different paced organisation like Skanska or Atkins or another kind of organisation like that.
Absolutely. So you can see the pockets inside that business where it's a similar type nature of work, I guess. Yeah. And then take that method of working, which works for that department, which I guess makes it more efficient, more productive, more creative and collaborative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just wanted to come back and talk about, the role of a CIO, Chief Information Officer, because, unless people are in that space, that they might not really understand what that role does. So could you explain a little bit about what the role of a CIO now is and what, Barry, the CIO of Skanska was doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
What's the role of the Chief Information Officer? That's a good question. And sometimes I get asked, what's the difference between a Chief Technology Officer or a CTO?
Yeah, Chief Digital Officer.
Or an IT Director or a CDO, Chief Digital Officer and a CIO. But I've done the Chief Information Officer role, so I'll talk about that. And there's definitely some overlap. I think the first thing I'd say is that the role of Chief Information Officer is to kind of be upward and outward looking. So, your role is about, your responsibility is around making sure that the right technology and service around that exists in the organisation, and you're progressing that capability forward for the business. So you are delivering new products, new technology, new ways of working for the business to help the business. And it's not about putting technology in for the sake of it. It's about putting things in that are going to help the business. But I think to do that, you've got to be kind of upwards and outwards looking. So you've got to be looking at the organisation, through the eyes of the people that work at a senior level in that business and out to the market and what those opportunities might be in the market, whether that's moving into different sectors or different regulation that's going to come in, challenges that sector's going to face. You can't work in a bunker. So I think, and kind of looking for a periscope, you've got to be up there on the bridge, with the team that are running the company, kind of scanning the horizon. And
you've got to understand, I guess, every single facet of that company as well, when it comes to, what the people in finance are doing, in sales. You've got to actually understand, how people do what they do.
Yeah, and I'll challenge that a little bit actually, because I think no one's ever going to be able to, certainly in a big organisation, going to be able to understand
Every single
everything
job.
about how an organisation works. But you are right, because I think you need to be able to ask the questions or bring the right people into the room who can answer those questions. And I think that's a skill of a technology leader, a CIO, is to be able to bring good representation from the organisation into the room where you have got those gaps. So, if you work in a sales organisation, so sales are well represented in the room, pre-construction, delivery, design teams, consulting teams, health and safety teams, finance and HR teams in the room at the right time to be able to have that right dialogue. So I think part of that is being able to draw the right expertise in and knowing when to do that.
Yeah.
And knowing whose door to go and knock on to be able to go and do that successfully. But going back to the the kind of core nuts and bolts of the chief information officer role, you're at one end you're dealing with strategy. So where's this business going? How do we use technology, data to help it get there? How do we help digitize this business to be more efficient using automation? Right the way through to how well are we supporting this organisation? When somebody's got a problem and they call the help desk and people need that, is that process working? Are they getting the service they need? And then everything that sits in between that. So project management, running a portfolio, running a budget, running applications teams to develop software, doing supplier management and procurement. So there's a whole kind of host of things that sit in between that.
It must be challenging because you've got the business where it is today. That's the engine, the machine that's on. But you're also, as you say, looking ahead at in the future technology. So, how much of the work you're doing as a CIO is on each of those areas, if you can quantify it like that?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd want most of your time focused on future. So where are we going? Are we lined up in the right way to get there? Is where we're going right for this organisation, and testing that with the organisation? So, maybe 40% of your time doing that.
Really?
And then 40% of your time making sure that
you've got a well-oiled machine.
You've got a well-oiled machine, your compliance is there, your delivery is there. You're serving the needs of your business and the consumers of technology and data in your business. And then, 20% then perhaps on, making sure that all of the right development is in place for your people, managing the budget, managing the finances, all being a key part of, being a leader at a kind of perhaps a more managerial level. So, I think there's a split across kind of strategic, kind of tactical and operational that you need to kind of
it's multifaceted, really.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I'd reflect on strongly there is that changes by the hour, right?
Well, I bet the role 2 years ago is completely different to what it's like now. Eh?
But even on any given day, you can think you're going to do something really strategic and then get sucked into something very operational.
That goes out the door. And
or you can be dealing, and so context switching.
Yeah.
1 minute you're maybe having a really operational conversation with somebody for some reason, and then the next minute, you might get a phone call from somebody who wants to talk about something, really out there and, potentially quite pivotal for the organisation. So I think, being able to flip that switch of being able to jump from one topic to the next and then come back to what you were trying to do. Yeah, I think that's quite important.
Yes. That's a skill in itself, isn't it really?
Yeah.
It's the reality of, because a lot of people look at, senior level people inside companies and, these titles like CIO, for example, seem maybe quite unachievable to a lot of people, but the reality of your role, I mean, is it on a day you're in back-to-back meetings, or is that how this role is, or do you have time where you can be out there meeting different technical partners, for example?
I think you've got to, as much as you can, control your time. So absolutely you need to be out, it's a relationships role, right? It's a communication and it's a relationships role. You've got to have the right relationships with the right people in the organisation and outside the organisation, and with your technology delivery teams. Okay, so and you don't get that through sitting in meetings the whole time. You need to be out walking the floors. You need to be, out on. If you're in a construction business, you need to be out on site.
Really? So you actually go out and after the projects?
Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah, visiting projects is super important. But I thought also not just kind of turning up as the IT guy doing that.
Yeah.
Going out with other people. So going out with the head of safety, going out with the head of HR, going out with project delivery people to kind of go and visit and see those sites through their eyes as well, because you learn so much from them in that capacity. And, I've had the privilege to work with some fantastic people in those fields, and you learn so much from them. And in that kind of construction site environment, getting out, you just have a different kind of conversation.
I can imagine,
which I think is really important.
But I'd like to talk a little bit more about, those types of people a little bit later on in the conversation. But you mentioned something a little bit earlier, really important, which was talking the right language. And I might be casting stereotypes here, but I can imagine in a lot of businesses generally, and maybe like construction, there's maybe individuals in those businesses who perhaps aren't the most technology savvy people. They don't really know, maybe don't even check or write their own emails, for example. So when you're having to talk, technology topics to these individuals, how do you do that? Really, it must be difficult when you know this stuff inside and out, but then having to present that in a way that's easily digestible and understandable to those senior people.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I think that's a fundamental responsibility of a chief information officer or anyone kind of working at a senior level in IT, is to be a translator.
Really?
So,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, every organisation and every kind of role discipline has its own language, right? Whether you're in recruitment or whether you're in finance or construction delivery, everyone's got their own private language of kind of how they talk.
They do, yeah.
Right, and people do that because it eases communication. But that's definitely a blocker, in my experience, when IT people turn up in a room, particularly in a boardroom, and they speak in IT gobbledygook. And a lot of the people that are perhaps sitting in that boardroom have kind of earned their way there. They've earned their way there by working up the ranks. They understand the business really well. They understand risk. They understand commercial. They understand clients. They understand delivery, right? And they've earned their way there because of that. And I think it's incumbent on the IT technology leaders to respect that and recognise that, and not turn up expecting everyone else to understand your language.
Yeah.
So if you turn up talking about TOGAF and ETL and NIST, you
lost the room.
You just lost the room. You've got to unpack that, and you've got to
you've got to explain.
You've got to explain things in straightforward terms. And we're not talking about dumbing stuff down because you're not talking to intelligent people, but explaining things in a way that is relatable and people can get, because they're smart people. But you've got to find a way of explaining, what's important and getting their attention.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine it's very challenging, and there's some major business technology like ERP, for example, and like I guess you're talking to these senior stakeholders in the company, and we're talking about getting sign off on these projects which are tens and tens of millions of pounds, for example, and then they're actually having to understand what this really means for the business. Yeah,
and I think that until people really pay attention, and sometimes that happens too late, then people don't always understand the consequences of doing something like a big ERP transformation. And
in what way? They just think, we're going to spend X amount of millions on
and it's an
SAP,
IT project.
Yeah, and we just install it and away we go.
Yeah, and I think that's, that happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't pay enough attention to the important aspects of the fact that it's not just about technology. It's about the data and the data's the organisation's data. It's not something that IT control the quality of.
Okay, all right.
And making sure that the organisational change is done in a right way, so that new way of working lands well with the organisation.
Mm-hmm.
So I have worked in companies where ERP implementations have gone pretty nastily wrong, and drops a share price pretty significantly overnight because payments can't be made or numbers can't be reported, and that has a very detrimental effect on.
So you just can't run your business.
Can't run your business, and so I've seen that firsthand how that can impact an organisation.
Yeah.
And I carry that with me. So when you go to deal with those projects again, and perhaps you're sitting in front of a board of directors who haven't had that experience, you find yourself with the opportunity to explain that in fairly stark terms. And there's no point in me sitting there talking about data migration cycles and kind of waffling on in technical terms to people, because that's not going to get any traction. So when I'll talk to people about, like, if we talk about ERP as an example, I will relate ERP to being the lifeblood and the kind of cardiovascular system of the organisation. It's the nervous system of the business. Yeah. It's what breathes life into the business every day and helps it transact its work. And
so the ERP, maybe for anyone, I guess all businesses out there, big businesses have an ERP system, but that's literally the operating system of the company. I guess.
Finance, commercial, HR systems.
So how they run and operate.
So how you run a company, yeah. So it's that backbone of an organisation, or the heart and lungs of an organisation, and I will relate it in those terms of as we're gonna take your old ERP system out and put a new one in. It is like open heart surgery. We are effectively opening the chest cavity of your business whilst it's still running, and we're going to take out one set of vital organs and transplant them real time with a new set, an upgraded set. And we've got to do all of that whilst keeping the business running.
So you still got to operate, you still got to trade.
Yeah. And I think, using language like that, or using kind of illustrative stories like that, I think it creates the right response in people. And when you can relate it to perhaps like the human body or something, and you kind of get the attention of the room at that point.
Well, I can see that, yeah. Because, I think unless people are involved in IT technology or transformation, most people wouldn't even know what an ERP system is. They're using this SAP Dynamics in their company, but that's probably it. They just know it for its name.
Yeah, and I think people have got to understand the consequences of getting that right and wrong.
I'm sure there's been some major reasons why companies have failed that you've been part of. Maybe like you said, the share price has tanked overnight because of that. Is there a reason specifically why something like that happens? Is there, if you look at the steps of that, technology being deployed, is there a trend as to why that doesn't work, I guess?
Yeah, I think there's a common set of themes that come out across kind of big, ERP in particular, or big technology transformations that fail. I think with those failures, the common themes are around not putting the right team on it. So, yeah, and I don't mean the IT team, the technology team. I mean the right business team, because ultimately what we're dealing with is business change.
Right.
You're asking an organisation quite often to change the way it processes its work. Its payments, its procurement, its supplier management, the way that it onboards people for an HR system. You're asking it to change that. And if you haven't got the right people in the room from those teams, you're not going to come out with the right answers. So
quite obvious when you break it down like that, isn't it?
But sometimes organisations get that wrong. And then, the second part of that is paying enough attention to the data. So generally you're taking data from an old legacy system, or maybe one or more, and then putting that into a new system. And, sometimes people don't get the consideration to that really effective movement of people. We call it data migration, but that movement of data out of old source systems into the new system and making sure it's right, because sometimes it isn't right, and you don't want to find that out when you've gone live, because then you're lost.
Yeah.
So that that happens, and is a common issue that people experience. And then I think the most important thing that is a common failure, particularly around big ERP and digital transformation programs, is around not readying the business. So not giving people the right training, not making sure that senior managers make their staff actually go on the courses.
Really? So something as simple as we've got this new, I mean, sometimes it's not even a new system, it's just an upgraded version, I guess. I mean, I'm talking in simple terms because I'm not a tech guy, but something as simple as that, you know, we're upgrading, we're going live with this new technology and they haven't even been trained on it.
Yeah, people don't always get that right, or they don't pay enough attention to that early enough in the program. It's an afterthought.
They're like, oh, we now need to train someone
up. Yeah. And I think this is where it's really important to bring the right expertise in early, right? So organizations hopefully will only do an ERP implementation once every 10, 20 years. Right? So it's not something you do continually.
Yeah.
So you only really get the opportunity to be good at it once, and you're either good at it or you're not. And if you're not, then it's painful. So I think that's where you need to bring the right expertise in. So I've worked really closely with PwC and their ERP implementation teams. And, you know, I will actively try and use their ERP implementation teams because they're really good. Now, I'm not on commission from PwC, right?
But you've got a track record, you know that they deliver.
Yeah, I know that they can deliver. I know they deliver really well. So I will want to bring somebody like that to the table because they've got that expertise. You know, it's like if you were to climb up Everest, you wouldn't just wing it.
You want someone who's been there before.
You want a decent guide who's going to put you through the paces on the right training.
Yeah.
And going to make sure you've got the right kit and make sure you're fit enough. And, you know, when you're kind of making your way up through those ice fields and you kind of get into that death zone, you kind of want to know that you've got somebody who knows what they're doing alongside you.
Absolutely.
Because it could unravel pretty quickly if you haven't. So, you know, I think it's important, you know, for organizations and for technology leaders to know when you are going to be in territory that is potentially out of your depth and to bring the right people in.
So just, you know, being very reflective, I guess, then really, and knowing that, you know, we're lacking this expertise, these capabilities. Let's not try and muddle our way through and figure it out. Let's actually leverage these experts.
Yeah.
And get them to help us, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. With a construction, like a company like Skanska, which is a huge construction company, something like technology. I mean, what would that mean for a construction director, for example? Because you know, everyone touches technology inside that company, but for someone, you know, that's on a project, should we say, you know, people physically building these impressive offices, doing these, you know, highways. You know, how does, you know, technology transformation digitally in that company affect their job, I guess? You know, how is it relatable to them?
So I'll answer that question considering the construction industry as a whole, right? Rather than just one organisation. So when you're delivering construction projects, you know, a lot of that is around the information. So the data that relates to that project.
Right.
And being able to have access to the right data to know where you are. You need the right program tools. So, and I don't mean software programs, I mean delivery programs, i.e. the program of works, what we're supposed to be doing on any given day. And you're typically working in an environment where you've got a lot of partners and supply chain members who don't work for the same company, but need to contribute to that project. So you've got to work in a way that you can manage your program, you can deliver your design, you've got the right information that you know what you're supposed to be building when, to what standard, using what materials and when they're coming. And you've got to be able to work in a collaborative environment where you can give the right people on your project team, regardless of whether they work for your company or not, whether you can give them the right information and the right access at the right times. So, you know,
so it touches everybody then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, as an industry, you know, construction has got the opportunity to use a lot more technology, to become a lot more digital, and to drive a lot more automation. In the construction sector, we employ really talented people, from engineering backgrounds or surveying backgrounds, lots of other disciplines. We're not yet as an industry always equipping those people with the best technology to be able to do those jobs and to do that in a really joined up way.
Why is that then? Is that lack of investment in these companies are making into giving their staff, their talented people, the best equipment they need to be as productive as possible? Is that what it comes down to?
I think there's a lot of reinventing the wheel. So a construction project typically has a start and an end, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Unless you're going on to kind of manage that asset for a client in the longer term. But, as a start when you break ground, and as it has an end when that project completes. And that project team disbands. Those individuals will go off and they'll go and work on other projects. And quite a lot of the time what happens is they will then build up a tapestry of systems again. And maybe because they're working with different supply chain partners, and different supply chain partners bring different bits of technology to the mix, and it gets chucked in the melting pot, and a new tapestry is created, and everyone has to learn it again, and then the cycle repeats. So, I think as an industry, there's an opportunity to get more efficient at kind of delivering in a more automated, repeatable way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're essentially building, those capabilities for that project, and then that finishes, and then you lose it. And then you've got to do it again.
Yeah.
On another project.
Yeah, like if you think about Formula One, every time you get a new car,
yeah,
you don't scrap all of your existing systems just to build a new car and start again from scratch with a different team.
Yeah.
You keep the best people from the winning team, and you keep the best of your systems and your repeatable, beneficial ways of working, and then you continue to build in and augment that.
But quite similar, yeah. So it's like every race, you're not putting a new team together to go and do that race in a new car.
Yeah, and that's quite often how construction can work.
No, I thought it was just, because, historically, construction industry profit margins are smaller than maybe in other sectors. So I just assumed maybe it was just a lack of funding investment that companies are willing to put into their project systems.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily always a shortage of investment. I think a lot of that is about the opportunity to employ that technology well.
On technology, I just wanted to talk to you about AI, because AI is absolutely everywhere. I mean, it has been for past 18 months. There's a lot of noise out there, a lot of, false prophets saying that, this is going to be the thing that's going to change your business. I think we're all waiting for that to happen. But what's your take on AI really at the moment? Where do you think it's going, and where do you think businesses can really leverage AI to improve their companies, make them more profitable, make people more productive, and just generally make them a better business at the end of it?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see now. I think what we're starting to see now is a maturing, a very early bit of maturing. There's a lot more to come in that space. And, I think organizations are starting to understand now how individuals can be made more effective with AI productivity tools like Microsoft Copilot.
Just making your current employees as productive as possible.
Yeah, helping people to be more productive, right? So, for anyone who's used generative AI, hopefully you'll have kind of worked out that it can help you do things better, more quickly.
Yeah.
In a way that, perhaps adds a little bit extra to it than you might have been able to do. So, I think at the first level, it's about equipping people on an individual basis to have the tools at their disposal and the skills to use them to do their job more effectively, whether that's being a project manager or being a designer or whatever else it is, to be able to, use tools on your desktop in your normal working environment that can help you be more productive, whether that's writing a presentation, bring in several different documents together to study them and get a better output, or reorganizing your day. So I think that's, it at its most simplest level. And then I think we start to look at organizations in terms of process. So I think about this in terms of back office and front office. Right. So back office, we talked about ERP and finance, HR, recruitment systems, CRM systems, those kind of backbone systems that run a business that everyone's got. How can we use AI in those environments to help us create more efficiency, remove cost, remove transactional work off of people so that they can get on with doing something more rewarding and more beneficial? So there's this, in that back office space, if you think about finance as an example, processing invoices does not need to be done by a person. Largely that can be done by a system, by AI, to reconcile those invoices against a purchase order and make sure they can be paid.
Just sending them out and reconciling them. That's all.
Yeah. So building agents into that process to replicate that transactional work that an individual might normally do. And then, I think it's about looking across those back office processes to work out, right, where can we use agents? And, we hear this term a lot at the minute around agentic AI. Effectively an agent's a digital employee, a computer that can do the job of an employee, of a person, of a task.
And these are custom to that company that you'll build yourself then with software?
So, we can get agent builders and we can build an agent to do a task or a series of tasks. And ideally we want to be doing that in a way where, we've got an agent that does a task and another agent that checks the other agent's work.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So
you've got a quality agent, and then you've got
a doing agent, and then you've got a quality checking agent to make sure that the doing agent is doing the task that it should have been.
I never thought that's possible.
Yeah, otherwise, you run a risk of just trusting one agent.
Yeah, you do. Or have a human then check it.
And we'll come back to that in a minute. And then from a front office perspective, so if we think about construction or design, we've got kind of that digital construction estate of technology. So tools to run programs, tools to do design, tools to do structural analysis or geographical information services. You've got all of that technology that helps you deliver a project for a client, right? So within that, we want to be looking at artificial intelligence opportunities to help people do those tasks more effectively. And that could be design. So using design tools that create a better visualization, right? So what do I mean by that? When you design a building, you're designing a graphical model of that. You can then create a visualization, so a rendered image of what
so
that's
you can see what it's going to look like. Yeah.
So using AI now, we can take that image, that flat still image, and we can turn it into a video.
Really?
Which
so you can put
5 years
VR,
ago,
I guess, and then walk people through.
Yeah, 5 years ago, that would have been a massive production task to do that. Now we can speed that up and get it done on the desktop of a person who clicks some buttons to get that done. And then, you can get those outputs into, kind of more immersive kind of fly-through technologies. So, what we're doing there is not stuff that hasn't been done before, but we're doing things there that used to be a very specialist task, and now we're equipping people in a more mainstream role with the ability to do that. So, and then, I think the other things around, in construction, we do a lot of contracts. It's a very contractual business. We do a lot of estimating. What's it going to cost to build that? How long is it going to take to build that? So we've got a lot of data that's been built up over many years around contracts or RFPs, requests for proposal, or financial data around estimating, all those kind of pre-construction activities that take place.
So in basic principles, like say we're going to do this project and you want to put together an estimate on the cost, you can then use AI. It knows all of the industry costs for bricks, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you've then got an accurate to the pence.
Yeah. Using your previous historic data set that you've built up over decades of how much a brick costs or a floor box costs or a tradesperson costs, and then benchmarking that against industry benchmarks so that you're not just taking your own data and then using AI to assimilate that quickly and respond more quickly to a new piece of estimating that you're doing. And it's the same for contracts. Contracts are detailed, onerous to manage and go through, very complex.
You talked about language. I mean, check some of the contract language.
Yeah, absolutely. And helping you identify risk in those contracts or opportunity. So yeah, I think there's a lot of, there's some significant opportunities there. I think a lot of that is about understanding the business and about understanding the organisation and how we can employ those. And a lot of that is about equipping people with the skills as well as the technology.
Because there's so many areas then, really. I mean, this might be a bit far-fetched, but do you think we're that far away from AI being used in construction companies, design companies, to actually fully design, and spec a project? Is that capable, do you think?
Not yet, but it will happen at some point.
Wow.
I think we're on a road towards that.
So you just say, this is what we're doing. These are the parameters, location, here's the plans.
Yeah,
away you go.
That exists in parts, but that end-to-end process isn't joined up yet. And I think there's an opportunity at some point to kind of get to a more automated workflow, which is AI enabled, to be able to get to that point. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the aspirational territory that we need to head towards.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. There are some basics that need to be sorted out before then, though, not least the data.
Yeah, there's a few years away at least then.
Yeah.
I just want to talk on a point you touched about previously, which is really people, and I can tell from sitting down with you. I mean, you're a people person. You've built lots of teams in your career, I'm sure. When you are building teams, when you're hiring people, for example, or trying to pick the best people for projects, is there anything specifically that you do look for in people?
Yeah, I think my job is fundamentally about people, more about people than it is
putting
about
the right people,
technology
in the right places.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do I look for in people? Competence to do the job. So having the right aptitude to do the job, experience. But those are table stakes, really. I want people who can perform really well in a team and enjoy working in a team. I'd much rather have people on the team who want to be part of a team rather than lone wolves. I want people who have got a high level of kind of ethics and I can trust, and they want to put their trust in other people. And I want people that enjoy their work and want to have a bit of fun at work. We spend a lot of time working with colleagues, and so it's about professional capability, it's about shared values, and it's about people who are willing to muck in and be part of the team and have a bit of fun along the way. And that's really important to me.
I can imagine it's hard work though, isn't it, for people? I mean, very stressful environment, high pressure environment. So there's big stakes on the table as well. It must be challenging at times to get the right people though, to identify those gems that are going to get you through.
Yeah, and I think you build good teams. Sometimes people don't work out. Sometimes people far exceed expectations, and I think that's our job, isn't it, to kind of continually refine the team and how we work to help us be better. But we don't always get it right.
And it's learning from that experience as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
In my line of work, spoken to thousands of people, in my career, and people's typically one of those variables that you can't predict, you can't control.
And I think it's good to get people who have got different experiences as well. We talked about this earlier about the benefit of having different experiences. We don't want everyone in a team to be a cookie cutter,
be the same person,
the next person. It's really, I think, massively beneficial to have people from lots of different backgrounds and different career routes that have got to that point, so that you can kind of get that diversity of thought into what you're doing and the ability to challenge each other as well.
I want to just touch on the point now about obviously your career, I mean, you've worked your way up from IT help desk to being CIO for a huge construction company. You didn't go to university yourself. What do you honestly feel it takes for an individual? Maybe they're starting out on their career, or maybe they're in a role now, and they wanna reach their full potential. They want to climb the ladder. They realised, like you did with Leslie, that no, I want to be a CIO. What do you think it takes for them to honestly achieve that?
Well, I think the drive and the ambition, it starts with that, and a little glimmer of wanting to achieve that, and then finding some good mentors, people who will spend time with you to help you grow. And in my experience, if you ask, if you go out and ask for help, 9 out of 10 times people will give you career help.
People want to help people.
Yeah.
Well, good people want to help.
Good people want to help people who they can see want to develop. Yeah. So, I would encourage anyone to kind of get out and find good mentors. And there's a massive reward in being a mentor, so they're going to get something out of it as well. But if you've got that opportunity, or you create those opportunities, and if that's going knocking on doors, shooting people messages through LinkedIn, going and seeing people in your organisation or the company next door and asking for a bit of mentoring to help you get to that next stage, I think that's an absolutely key thing to do. I talked earlier about kind of mapping out my career. I sat down.
Where you want to go to.
Yeah, I think if you want to get somewhere, you've got to work out what your route's going to be. And you might not get it right first time, and that's okay.
Know where you're going and then work back from.
Yeah. Working out what those different steps are and what those different experiences are. Sometimes taking a sideways step is fine to build up a different bit of experience.
Absolutely.
To get you up to a higher step at another point in time. I think that adaptability is key, and jumping at opportunities. It's easy to turn down difficult opportunities, but when you jump at them, in my experience, it's not always easy, but you definitely become much stronger and more resilient as a result of that. And you build up a set of experience which you can apply later. So I think I came out of a comprehensive school with not the best set of academic results.
So you're proof, if you know where you want to go to, you work hard. Obviously, you've got to have the aptitude. You've got to show up. You've got to deliver.
Yeah.
But it's achievable.
100%. Yeah. And I think technology's a great leveler for people to come in and do that.
We were talking about something really interesting off camera, and you were talking about people putting themselves in uncomfortable situations, those development situations. And, I think it's all too easy for people to be comfortable and not try and challenge themselves. We're everything's available to us now instantly, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I found, because you've got real first-hand experience with that, of putting yourself in those difficult situations, challenging situations to further develop, and obviously that's progressed your career.
Yeah, I mean, everyone gets presented with different opportunities along the way, and it's easy to stay sitting in the same place because it's comfortable. It's much more difficult to kind of jump out of your comfort zone and go and do something difficult. And I think, maybe one of the things I've learned is that actually you don't have to know all the answers, and there's never a good time to jump.
No time's
there's never a perfect time to jump.
So I know that very well.
Sometimes you just got to jump.
Yeah. And figure it out.
Yeah, and figure it out. And, I think when you've done that a few times, and it can be daunting, I've had sleepless nights earlier in my career about stuff, and been absolutely petrified of going and doing some of the things. I mean, when I started in my career, I was terrified of public speaking. Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest fear most people have.
Yeah, and the only way to fix that
is
to do it as much as you can. And then you become pretty comfortable at it, and hopefully half decent at it.
Yeah.
And so, and I think, it's about chucking yourself into those opportunities.
And you enjoy it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can relate to that very, very well. And it's just an interesting point because most people don't want to put themselves in those uncomfortable situations, I guess, through fear of failure. They don't want to mess up. They want to, you're talking about timing. Everybody's sitting there waiting for the perfect time. They want the stars to align because they want to get it right first time. But it doesn't work like that, does it?
No. And it's okay to fail.
Yeah, that's development. It's
as
learning.
long as you learn from it.
Yeah, just don't do it twice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because every opportunity is an opportunity to learn. So yeah, you're not always going to get it right.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And I think with teams, back to teams and people at work, I think that's a really important role of leadership, is to create that environment where it is okay to drop the ball now and again. But transparently put your hand up and say that, and know that you're not going to get shot for doing it. You're going to kind of regroup as a team and fix that problem and move on. And too often at work we see people trying to hide stuff because it's not gone right, and it just kind of comes out later.
It all comes out in the wash at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I always want to do on a big delivery project is have massive transparency about what's not going right.
Yeah.
Because then people come forward with other things that aren't going right, which I'm thankful for, because then we can fix them.
Yeah, that's part of leadership, isn't it, really? And making people comfortable in those uncomfortable environments. Nobody wants to be the person to put their hand up to say, look, got this wrong, or that's not working out.
Yeah.
But then when there's trust, you've got that environment, people are comfortable to bring that to the table, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's our job to create that trust,
Yeah. And I can only imagine there's lots of businesses out there where that isn't the case. There's people in positions maybe making mistakes, messing up, and they don't want to put their hand up. They don't want to go to their boss and say, look, this hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
Looking back over your career, Barry, I mean, if you were starting out in your career now, knowing what you now know, what do you think you'd tell yourself? Is there any advice you'd give yourself?
Yeah, I think, we kind of hear a lot about, I think there's anything's possible. I think, we hear a lot about imposter syndrome, and you kind of worry that you're not good enough to do the job, or somebody else is going to be better at it than you, or, am I really cut out for this? This person's more qualified. They went to a better school. They, this, whatever.
Everything, all that noise you tell yourself.
All of that noise in your head. Actually, I think when you've been through a whole bunch of different experiences, you get a bit more comfortable with being uncomfortable. But do you know what? Would I change any of that? No, not really. Because I think no. And I wouldn't probably have done anything different, because actually,
that's made you where you are.
Yeah, that's kind of helped me get to this point. And, hopefully I've got another chapter in my career where I can continue to employ some of those lessons and continue to learn until I retire and ride off into the sunset.
It's fascinating you say that, because I'm sure there's been challenging experiences that you've had. There's been mistakes, there's failures, but you wouldn't change any of that, because that's made you who you are now. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So on to the topic of who you are now. You're in a bit of a transitional period at the moment, aren't you? So what do you think this next chapter now holds for Barry?
Yeah, so I'm doing some advisory work at the minute, which is a lot of fun. So kind of going in and doing consulting work for people, kind of jumping kind of right in at the deep end and kind of helping them to understand where they are and how they can use technology or shape their teams or their business to kind of move forward. Doing that in a private equity backed environment, which is a lot of fun, very fast paced, lots of opportunities. So that's really good. And I'll continue to do that whilst it's rewarding and fun. I think, but ultimately, you'll have got the gist from me. I'm very much a people person. I like building teams. I like operating in successful teams and helping teams to be successful and wanting to be part of that success. So, I think my home, for the next 5-10 years is to get into another challenging, an interesting chief information officer, chief digital officer role. where, probably in design, engineering and construction, because that's what I know really well now. And so, place your strengths there, and, to go in and kind of help an organization onto the next leg of its journey. And, we talked about AI earlier. We are at a super exciting point where we can really, over the next 5-10 years, really transform how we work. And that's got to be done in a very measured way, in a careful but kind of ambitious way.
Do you think there's a lot of companies now not really knowing what they want to do, what they want to achieve, but all these business leaders, it's, go to events, everyone's talking about AI, their competitors are using AI, so they're like, well, we must use AI, we've got to be part of the party. But I'm sure there's a lot of businesses out there that are going down rabbit holes with it, really.
Yeah, I think everyone's in the same position, largely. Unless
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot of fear of missing out. There's a lot of FOMO around AI. People worrying about what the competition are doing. And, it's important to have an eye on what the competition are doing, but not just around AI.
But you need someone to see through all the noise, all the BS, and actually work out, well, what's actually going to make us a better business? What's going to give us a return? Exactly that.
And where do we prioritize our effort, and where are we going to get the best return? First of all, to experiment in this space and learn, and then to scale that and deploy it more widely across an organization and scale it out. Yeah.
There's a lot of untapped potential for companies, and a lot of areas that they can be looking at.
Yeah, hugely. But AI is going to present us with a great opportunity, right? And it already is. But also, we've got a job to do, which is about doing everything else that technology delivers, and not getting dazzled.
Not just focusing on that and that's it.
Because actually running technology and continuing to deliver technology products for an organization is a big task, and complicated and nuanced. And, I think we can't take our eye off the ball from that. We've got to keep the lights on, keep the ship on the right course, keep everything going in the right direction, keep the company safe and operating well, and drive that strategy and that ambition forward. So, I think that's a really exciting period that we're coming into now.
Just on the business point there, I mean, because I'm seeing that there's different businesses here who can benefit from the technology, and talk about AI, for example. I mean, if you're a small startup business, you're in prime position, really, because you don't have a large legacy company
of history to kind of unpick.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So 100%.
Yeah. So
but we don't all start from that greenfield position.
No. Yeah. So they're actually in a privileged position, because they can go down a rabbit hole, get it wrong, and it doesn't affect their share price.
Yeah, but typically for big organisations, they're generally not starting from that standpoint. Different set of challenges.
Yeah. So there's so many top companies out there, within your space that can benefit from your expertise, I'm sure. And there's still a very long career left ahead of you.
Thanks.
Well, Barry, it's honestly been fascinating to unpick, your career, talk about technology, AI, people. So thank you so much for talking to me.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks very much for having me along, and really good questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.